On tonight, I ask that you would consider Acts chapter 10, verses 1 and 2. I chose this particular passage in regards to the continued prayer requests in behalf of our families. Out of my care and concern for each of you, the concerns for your family are of such that we need to give time to discussing and certainly praying in behalf of our families. I began to think about the movie Soul Food. You all remember that 1997 blockbuster movie. Did well in the box office. It received lots of awards and nominations, and even developed into a TV series. It resonated well with many of us. Everyone was talking about the movie. It was, at the time, a must-see. I began to wonder, in reflection on that movie, why did we love it so much? What made it stand out from other movies of the time or times prior to it? I think there were a number of things that we valued, a number of things that we perhaps remember from our own families or desire to continue or have again in our families. One thing that stood out about the movie was the value of sacred traditions. By having the traditions that family put into place, it taught respect for others, certainly respect for elders, and there was a value put on time together. Those sacred traditions were about standards. It was about order. It was about family having moments together that create history and fond memories. We liked the movie because, well, the name Soul Food, just that. Thinking of the menu as we looked at the screen, it certainly woke our stomachs up. We thought about our mothers and aunts, and grandmothers, and those who have gone on, or those who have in their older years become unable to cook for the family like they used to. Those individuals loved cooking, and they loved seeing their loved ones sit around and enjoy a meal. We liked it because in that movie we saw family issues were settled. They were settled because there was an authority figure, a matriarch in the family, and there was accountability, family members one to another. They saw strength in each other. They valued unity. And family is the first experience of love, idealistically, that any of us would have. When individuals do not have the experience of love in the family, they go into the world disjointed, handicapped, and unable to experience in a healthy way what they should have experienced at home. We certainly loved Mama in the family, a matriarch who exemplified character, strength, and spiritual values. Not to mention, we love the fact that it was a great soundtrack with timeless music, music that touched the innermost part of who we are. Indeed, it was a great movie. What you may or may not know is that it was not purely fictional. It was the writer's take on his own family. Though the movie was based in Chicago, the writer actually grew up in the Wisconsin area, and it was an obscure portrait of his family. I say obscure because it was not completely biographical, but certainly enough to give you an image of his family life. The family is so important to us, and our hearts pour out when we see our families making choices that are inconsistent with God's will, when we see pain and when we see suffering as a result of bad choices. We reflect on Acts 10 because we see a person like Cornelius, a person who is described as a family man. As a matter of fact, Acts 10 and verse 2 in particular state that he and his family feared God. What a beautiful testament to a man to not only have a God relationship, but to lead his household in loving, serving, and worshiping God. But when we look at a movie like Soul Food, or we read a text like this in Acts chapter 10, some of the dysfunction and some of the problems in our current families almost make this literary example and the example on the television screen or on the movie screen to seem almost too idealistic, because we continually see the degrading of the family. Let me mention that it is not by mistake, it is not accidental that the family has become so disjointed and dysfunctional. It is the intent of Satan, our adversary, to be aggravating and agitating to the family unit, because God created the family as a foundation by which men and women could develop their sense of morals and values and ethics, where they can experience love and have a sense of others. And so it is that Satan has attacked that very union, because he attacks anything and everything that God has created. So we must come to recognize that our family concerns and the problems that we frequently request prayer about are not merely isolated issues, and no person should feel bad as if they are the only ones experiencing such realities. These things are reminiscent of Satan's attacks, and they are consistent with what so many others feel, which means that we must engage ourselves in prayer to ask God to do supernaturally what we cannot do naturally. We must find ourselves praying that God, who is all-wise and all-powerful, that he would so move as to address Satan's attack, and that he would put a hedge around our families. In the interim, there are certain things that we can do, or at least certain values that we can hold, that can strengthen this unit, so that we too can be described as Cornelius, as being a family person with a family that is devoted to fearing God, that is, loving God, serving God, and worshiping him. Number one, we must emphasize community over individualism. One of the benefits of the family is learning how to get along with others, learning how to deal with various personalities and temperaments, and learning how to share, how to compromise, how to disagree, how to fight, and how to make up. The emphasis on individualism allows a person to develop such a self-centeredness that they go into the world ill-equipped and ill-prepared for the realities of a world that may have individualistic-minded people, but certainly the world is a community in which you must, on your job, in your schools, and in the families that you choose to make, learn how to not be self-centered, but to learn to be selfless. Families must also learn to put character above success. The strides that we, especially in the Black community, have made since the Civil Rights era in terms of our abilities to gain employment, to live in areas that we have not before been able to live in, to go downtown, to enjoy things and to enjoy life, certainly is a testament to those who fought, who marched, and who struggled. But we must remember that even when we were confined by Jim Crow laws and restricted from the free access of movement at our choice or at our will, that we at least had some sense of character. Now that we're able to pursue success, it seems that we have compromised character in pursuit of what had long been denied before. We must also put substance over the material. The enjoyment that we have had in times past, when we traveled south to visit our elderly relatives, we did not sit in mansions. We did not enjoy the privilege of fancy sheets on a bed and fancy china. We ate out of mason jars. Clothes were put on clotheslines. We perhaps did not have air conditioners. We sat on big concrete porches with swing chairs, sipping on iced tea or cold glass of lemonade. Yet we felt as if we had arrived because we were in the presence of those we loved. And it was not about the material. It was about the love that we experienced and the time that we shared together. We must also learn to do something that is hard for many, and that is to value our seniors and not exclude our young people. We have given so much attention to babies born in the family and grandparents and others spoiling young people that we have in some regards disregarded our old. And many of our older people are feeling disconnected, feeling unloved, and feeling out of the loop. We must also learn to value absolute truth over relative truth. We must come to see that this time in which everyone's opinion is right is considered to be acceptable politically, but it is detrimental to the family. There must be times in which we teach absolute truth, where we teach self-restraint, and where we teach discipline. The lack of doing these things creates not only dysfunction in the family, but it makes those in our families ill-equipped to go and deal with the world in which they must deal. I certainly enjoyed the movie Soul Food. I enjoy even more the story about Cornelius, and what a great testament it would be if we take this challenge to call our families together and reclaim those values. We need to love one another. We need to forgive one another. Families have become broken because they have fallen out about inheritances, issues about land division and insurance policies and who paid for mama's funeral and things of that nature. If we would allow love to prevail, if we would engage forgiveness and learn to accept each other and respect each other, but most of all regard each other as children of God, we too can have a soul food family, not because it is written for the big screen, but because it's written in our hearts. This has been another edition of A Few Minutes with the Minister, with Words from the Master.